I was chatting to a client the other day and she said something that really made me stop and smile. And it stayed with me ever since. It was, I like the sport of it. And it hit me that you really do need to like the sport. I often call it the game. You need to like the game of entrepreneurship. You need to like that game of building your business. And this isn't me here to discourage you because somebody tried to do that to me when I started my business, but it is sharing some honest truths that I wish I had known earlier. Because when you understand these things, it becomes so much easier to keep going and actually enjoy the journey. It's of no surprise to me that this person is probably my most successful client. And that's why, because you have to like the sport of it to actually build that success. She, like everybody else, went through all of the lows that come with the highs. So, putting in 6 months of work with zero return at the beginning, going through all of the generic niching things, going through the whole phase when your content's just boring and no one's really liking it, and you're working really hard, you're doing all the consistent things, and it's just not working. So don't think that this is just like a magic pill. But the fact that she's come through those things is what makes me realize that that is why she is successful, because she likes the sport of it. So, my key point here is to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. When you embrace the fact that there are no guarantees in life, you also give yourself permission to be creative, to trust yourself, to try new things, and to take complete ownership of what happens next in your life and your business. That is when you 20x your personal growth as a person and also as a business, because reward comes with risk. So, whilst I've helped hundreds of people do this, there's no reason you won't be successful. You, as the business owner, as the CEO for your business, need to learn how to take risks, how to believe in yourself, how to trust yourself to get the outcome that you want. Every single time I've made an investment right from the start of my business, I felt just like you do when you make an investment, thinking, I don't want to waste this money. I need to know this is going to work. What if this is the wrong decision? All of the fear. I still actually feel it now. I've invested in two different coaches over the summer, and I still really do get that fear. And afterwards, I think, oh, did I really need to spend this money? Maybe I don't really need to do this, and all of the things. But I just know once I start working with these people, I will be so grateful that I made the investment in myself, that I took the time to spend on me and my personal development, my business development, because a lot of the time we are just sending signals to ourselves that this will work for us. And that is the power in investing as well, is showing yourself that you are serious about this. You are going to actually show up and get the results that you have paid for. I don't know many entrepreneurs that have that glowing success story where they didn't have the rock bottom moment where they thought, oh, this is never going to work. Why is nothing working? Why is no one paying me? Why is no one engaging with my content? And that's what entrepreneurship gives you, is the personal growth to go through those moments again and again and again. And if you are on this journey, I'm hoping you are smiling now, because you will know that roller coaster of, oh my gosh, everything's okay. I got a client today. And then where's my next one going to come from? And you go down back to the low and you think, oh, nothing's working. It's exactly the same if you think about your social content. Sometimes you can go through a really good phase, you feel like you've nailed it, and then the algorithm changes and suddenly nothing's working again. And what going through those moments gives you is the skills of a successful business owner. You can't have the attributes of a CEO without going through those highs and lows. If you think about the CEO in maybe your past organization, then you will know that they usually worked their way up. They didn't just appear as the CEO. Maybe they slowly started getting promotions, running a team, until eventually they had earned their stripes as the CEO. So stop seeing early progress as pointless if it doesn't hit those big income targets. those are the moments that you will look back on and be so, so proud of. I think my biggest, most proud moment is probably my first ever paying client. I tried to sell at £650 and she negotiated me down to £550. It's still the moment I feel in my body when I think, oh my gosh, someone who I think is amazing has paid me to be their coach. So just know that all of these moments, these small ones especially, are the moments you will look back on and see that all along you were blooming. I had a big wake up call of this myself recently because I have a mastermind called the Next Level Mastermind. I sent out a feedback form to the previous participants. I must admit, I have a huge teaching element in me. And because in the mastermind, I don't really teach, it's actually been really tricky to own my value in that space initially because I'm so used to teaching like I do all of the time in this podcast, in my business of coaching program, in webinars and other things that I do, that it felt really uncomfortable just holding the space. And anyway, I opened the feedback forms and they were 10 out of 10. Would you recommend this mastermind to other people? Which made me so confused, in all honesty, of like, oh, wow. So people are still gaining so much from just being part of the space, having somewhere to celebrate wins, having an amazing group of people who really get where they're at to share their experience, ask them great questions. But being part of something matters as much as information. So that's been my really big win over this summer. And that's why I'm recording this podcast, in fact, because most of my podcasts, I teach a lot because I know a lot and there is a lot to learn. But what I really want to start doing is helping you to shift perspective, because often it's not always in what we know, it's about who we are as a person that brings that success. And if I look around the room at my mastermind, there is not one person there that would ever ask for a guarantee that they will get XYZ by becoming part of the mastermind, because they're experienced business owners and they know that they are responsible for their business and their results and their progress in that mastermind. So I think that is the difference between a new business owner who hasn't currently established the skills, the responsibility, the risk-taking that entrepreneurship requires, versus established business owners who have been through the highs, the lows, and got to the other side. So this episode is more about uncomfortable truths that I don't always share, because what I've realized from having a month off so far, I'm on my school holidays and suddenly I have the inspiration to share a podcast with you. I've been running the same program now for over 4 years, which is really exciting. It's changed loads in that time. I'm still completely obsessed by it. But I'm also slightly jaded, I guess, when I see new coaches misled by a real lack of knowledge. And it hurts me because that was me when you look back on what you used to think and believe. And I genuinely had no idea that there was going to be a learning curve involved in building my business, as many coaches don't. I thought as soon as I had that qualification, I would just have people queuing up at my door for my coaching. I'm privileged to have started working with a few coach training organizations recently, and super established ones at that. So I'm so, so glad that some coaching organizations are starting to prioritize and share the real honest truths of what happens the other side of coach training. The final uncomfortable truth I wanted to share today is really learning to treat your business like a job, with accountability, consistent hours, and thinking to yourself, if this was an employed role, would you have a job right now? Because what I notice is, I put out one social post this week, and that is essentially an hour's work. Amazing. And I get it. Maybe you're not working full time. There are all sorts of variations of building a business, like I do at 10 times school hours only. So I certainly don't have full time hours. But whatever hours you do have in your business, it's really worth focusing on a small number of high value activities. Usually, these are the things that mean real interaction with real people. So that might be going to a networking meeting that is very specific to your ideal client. That might be sending a bunch of DMs to people that start conversations. That might be speaking on a podcast so you can get in front of more listeners. But it's really worth thinking about what can you do in the limited time you may have available. I actually was probably way more efficient when I had about 8 hours a week on my business because I had 2 days with my son in childcare and they were like 10 till 2 days or something really small. But I used to do far more then than I do now when I have actually a lot more time because my kids are a touch older. So, whatever excuse you're making that you don't have time, I hear you, but jot down those really hard tasks that you don't want to do and do them first. There's that book called Eat the Frog, and that's essentially it. Do the thing you don't want to do. So, that might be sending the DMs, that might be pitching the podcast, anything that's essentially going to deal with rejection are the things that I certainly avoid. So, you may be similar. Get them done first before creating your pretty Canva picture or whatever it is you will want to use your time doing. So, the real honest truth here that I want to share is to give yourself performance development reviews. How are you doing? Are you focusing on the hard, uncomfortable things? Or are you hiding behind social media? If you are to be in the top 20% who succeed, and if you were doing your own personal development review, would you be giving yourself feedback? What would you say you could do differently with your time, with your energy, with your focus? And this really isn't easy. These are questions I ask myself all the time. Am I making the most of the opportunities that are right in front of my nose? All I can say is that over the years, I really, really have made the most of those opportunities. I've put in every ounce of energy and enthusiasm and time that I have had. Things like my friendships have not been prioritized. I've got young kids as well. And every waking moment that I had up until this point in my business has been building the business. And I'm finally getting to the other side now where I really do want to have my 6 weeks off. I don't always want to sneak onto my laptop, which used to be like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I can do some work this weekend. How very exciting. Now I just want to go sit in the garden. I don't want to look at my phone. So I think there are seasons in life, and the initial season of your business is hard work. And that hard work will give you the reward that you want in the end. So here's a few behind the scenes truths. I advise you to get to know all corners of your business so you don't have to feel scared. I remember when I just wanted to say hi, first name in my newsletter, but I just didn't know how to get that first name thing to work. And I felt so stressed and overwhelmed by this, which made me realize that actually I kind of needed to learn the basic foundations of all of my business before really being able to delegate effectively and to overcome that fear of going into my own system and sending an email or updating my own website. Because I see so many people have to say, oh, I'll speak to my web designer, or I'll speak to the person that set up my lead magnet because I don't know if I can make any changes. And they're essentially trapped in their business. And this isn't saying never delegate, but it is saying don't delegate all responsibility to someone else. If somebody does build it for you, get them to have a little mini training session with you and record it so you aren't at ransom to other people to do really basic things in your business, like make a quick change to your website, send an email to your list, just small things that you will need to do. And if you're petrified of tech, honestly, I used to be petrified too. And now I can do crazy things, probably better than the people I would pay to do this stuff. So please know you can do amazing things. We are so well resourced right now with YouTube. And every time you learn one new thing, you are building confidence and freedom into your business. And that is worth celebrating. So I've gone off on many, many tangents today, but I hope this off the cuff episode is a good boost for you to remind you that you are responsible, you are creative, you are whole, you are resourceful, and you can do this. You really do want to fall in love with the process, because what I'm going through right now is that reaching that destination where you've essentially made it on paper isn't the thing that you thought it was. And the chase is always going to be there. There's always going to be that next goal that you want. So how can you learn to reflect more and fall in love with the process more? Because if you can enjoy the work you're doing now, before all of the big results come in, you are already winning. You will become the kind of business owner who can handle whatever comes next. This is exactly what I'm doing in my business at the moment. I'm really starting to reflect rather than teach. So I hope you liked this episode that I know is very different from my usual stuff. I wanted to share what was on my mind today. Please let me know if this episode resonated with you and I could share more real, honest truths with you on future episodes. And like I say at the end of every episode, trust yourself, believe in yourself, and be the wise gardener who keeps on watering the seed. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Women in the Coaching Arena. I have a mass of free resources on my website, joannalottcoaching.com. That's Joanna with an A and Lott with 2 T's, joannalottcoaching.com. And I'll also put links in the show notes below. Let me know if you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and leave me a review, and I will personally thank you for that. Remember to trust yourself, believe in yourself, and be the wise gardener who keeps on watering the seed. Get into the arena, dare greatly and try.